Alright, dude, in this fantasy anime, you're gonna meet Kyle, who's no fool of a main character. Even though he's kind and strong, he doesn't chicken out when it counts and jumps into a fight without holding back. Come with me into new Saga and stick around till the end. So let's get to the recap. In this fantasy world, there are humanoids like humans, elves, and dwarves who are blessed by light. Demons have a smaller population and are blessed by darkness, being stronger than the humanoids. These two forces have been clashing for millennia and split the vast continent of Leanders between east and west. However, one day, a cool demon king took the throne and Leanders had peace for about 300 years. The humanoids got used to a temporary peace. But in the 5th month of 2826, the peace was shattered. Under the orders of a new demon king, his army attacked the humanoids full force, and in the future this event would be known as the Great Invasion. The humanoids fell one by one. And the next year, 2827, the Gargan Empire, which had the humanoids' greatest military power, was wiped out for good. One day, the humanoids gathered their remaining strength and invaded Demon territory in a final attempt to send the Demon King to end the war. The heroes group sacrificed themselves one by one to clear a path for Kyle, who, with his last ounce of power, managed to pierce the Demon King and win. But it cost him everything. Everyone Kyle loved was gone. When he was about to say goodbye to this world, a red light appeared from a magic stone. Kyle gets up and goes to it because he can't let its power run wild. But upon touching it, he wakes up in his house. In his room, everything is normal, and a girl named Lisa comes in. She moves the boy Kyle, who gives her a tight, loving hug. He thinks it's a dream and is way too happy to see her. He even grabs her butt, that shameless guy, and they almost get to business, which drives Lisa crazy and she shakes Kyle up. Everyone Kyle knows, like Theron, is alive and younger. Kyle goes to his mom, who is an archmage, and asks if there's any spell that turns back time. She says yes, but it would only be possible with the magic stone, that is the heart of the divine dragon, which would store the life force of thousands of people to turn into magical power. And this stone was used by the ancient magical kingdom of Charles, which prospered for 1,000 years thanks to the magical item. But the power ran out and led the kingdom to ruin. However, in this time where Kyle is, the stone is said to be lost, but he's got it stashed away with him. Later, in a conversation with Lisa, he remembers when the demons invaded the village and destroyed everything. That's how he lost Lisa, and from that moment he swore to avenge her death. In 3 years the invasion will begin, so Kyle needs to do something so the tragedy doesn't repeat. He swears he will change his future and the world's future. Kyle is doing a simulation training with his boosted magical power, but his body can't keep up with this evolution. Theron and Lisa don't know what's wrong with Kyle, because he's been like this since yesterday. Then Theron's mom Layla arrives. She asks if her foolish son came asking for help again. Then she sees Kyle training and notices he's different. Nobody gets why a guy who wanted an easy life living off his parents' inheritance suddenly got so hard and working. Layla says a boy only changes like that because of a woman, which makes Lisa crazy jealous. She goes up to Kyle and with a pissed off face asks who Kyle is messing around with. The kid gets so sickened he even pukes. At lunch, Kyle asks his teacher Layla about who would have the power to influence a nation. She says someone like the great hero Randolph could do that, or a king, or a high priest. So, with that answer, Kyle decides to become a hero to change the future. He tells Lisa he can't take her into danger on this journey, but promises to come back safe and sound. He even gives her a kiss. So then Lisa agrees. Going shopping, Kyle meets the elf, who died for him in the invasion of the Demon King's castle. The two had a thing in the future, and she told him her true name, X's. The elf hears this, and it causes trouble, because a stranger said her true name out of nowhere. Urza is pissed and wants to know how a human discovered her true name, which only she and her parents know. Urza agrees to help Kyle, provided they make a pact in about 15 days to ensure he doesn't spill her name around. The group of Lisa, Theron, Urza, and Kyle head for the Charles ruins to find a hidden treasure. The group put in a heck of an effort digging and using magic. Later that night, they go eat some good meat stew. Lisa and Urza go take a bath in the hot springs Urza created with her water spirit. Undine. Lisa says Urza doesn't need to worry about her true name, because even though Kyle is hiding something, he'd never hurt anyone. So Lisa plans to wait until Kyle tells everything. Urza and Lisa get closer, and Lisa sees she has a heart-shaped mark on her butt and thinks it's really cute. Meanwhile, Theron is dying to peek at the girls in the bath, but Kyle doesn't let him. The next day, while Kyle is digging, Urza asks why he wants to be a hero, and notes that the rings he wears are part of his training. They increase Kyle's body weight by 2 or 3 times, so he can improve his physical fitness. That said, Kyle finds the Charles ruins, and upon breaking the wall, there lies the treasure of the lost empire. Theron goes crazy and immediately dives into the gold coins. They hit the jackpot here. Kyle goes to a special room and finds his magic sword, his old partner. The sword takes the form of a girl and is impressed that a human reached this place. The sword thanks Kyle for getting there, but he tells her to be quiet or his friends might hear. Kyle reveals she is a copy of King Sildonia, a Carls, in personality and wisdom, who reigned during the peak of the ancient magical kingdom created by the king himself. The sword doesn't know how Kyle has this knowledge and gets curious. Kyle explains later and says he dug a tunnel to avoid the ruins traps to get there. Kyle then goes to pull the sword and says she soon know who he is. Now reunited with his longtime partner, she sees all of Kyle's memories from the future, and that he possesses the heart of the divine dragon. Lisa and the others arrive, and Kyle asks the sword to follow his flow and hide. Then Sildonia introduces herself and eats the biscuits Lisa gives her. Then explains she is a part of King Sildonia, created with magic to assess who is truly worthy of his treasure. Everything she ingests is converted into magical power. Sildonia also froze her age when she reached her peak power. Later, the group goes to a super high-quality weapon shop to buy more equipment. Kaya gets a dragon skin armor, enchanted with all kinds of defensive magic. At night, Urza comes to Kyle to conclude the application pact because of his true name. Normally, in an application pact, people swear their names to each other, and it's done in elf marriages. Urza certainly never thought she'd make a pact with someone she met 15 days ago. She calls Kyle to the circle and starts performing the pact. Urza forbids Kyle from sharing her name and using it for evil. That said, the dude gets closer and kisses her. Thinking that's how you seal the pact and believing that's how he did it last time, Urza pushes him away and says that's only for wedding ceremonies. Then, pissed off, she might even make a pact with a salamander, the fire spirit, to burn Kyle to a crisp. The next day, the group goes to the next city and meets Princess Milena, who was paying a visit. The people surround the carriage and are super happy Her Highness is there. Princess Milena of Zergus is smiling and attentive to the people and the next heir to the throne. She even helps the little child who fell to give her a bouquet of flowers. Kyle observes the soldier escorting her, who is Zento Sildonia, asks if this is the same princess, and Kyle says it's her, the one who will die in 2 days, at just 16 years old. Sildonia asks Kyle to explain how the princess kicks the bucket. He says in 2 days, Princess Milena will be passing with her caravan on the road from Arkan to Sane's village. The monster that attacks is a hydra. The forests near Arkan have always been infested with monsters, being very dangerous. So much so that Sane's village was attacked by a hydra a month ago. Upon hearing this, the princess went to Arkan, and then on to Sane's village, where she is attacked. Kyle says this can only be the result of her recklessness. But there were rumors her death was caused by Milena's half-brother, Prince Karina, who, being second to the throne, would gain a lot from Milena's death. He's in the city, but stays reclusive to not draw attention. Kyle then decides to rescue the princess when the time comes for his legend as a hero to begin. Kyle fights the Hydra, which is resistant to explosions, and it spits poison at Kyle. But he defends icily and cuts one of the beast's heads off, but it's useless with its regeneration. Urza and Lisa are dealing with the wolves, but are worried about Kyle. Theron can't take the creature's persistence anymore. Meanwhile, Kyle uses everything in his arsenal to defeat the creature. He cuts another head, but it regenerates really fast. Then Kyle uses a special piercing strike and attacks the creature's chest. He gets stuck on it and puts something shiny inside the Hydra, but is thrown far away. Then the Hydra explodes from the inside because of several explosive stones Kyle placed inside the beast. His plan worked really well, and Sildonia says it was a very smart and powerful blow. Kyle returns to the group, but he stinks to high heaven, making Urza and Lisa move away from him. So he throws water on his body to see if it improves. Princess Milena and her ladies-in-waiting are unconscious, so Urza gives them antidotes. Theron found the item that made the creatures attack the princess. It was all a setup, and as expected, her half-brother, Prince Karina's, is behind it. General Zento Zordi sends a message to dispatch a squad. That said, Princess Milena wakes up and wonders if she's still alive. She thought she'd never wake up again, and asks if they were her saviors. Kyle kneels and introduces himself to Her Majesty, saying they saved her from monsters. One of her ladies wakes up and tries to protect her princess from strangers, but Milena says it's okay and thanks them for everything. Sildonia, in her bird form, warns Kyle that the king's guard is approaching. So Milena says they need to flee, otherwise they're screwed. And she says Captain Zentos is the one who wants her dead. Milena asks her lady to burn the bodies to destroy the evidence. Kyle's group, along with the princess and her ladies, escape by carriage. Milena says they will have help if they buy enough time for her personal Kuran battalion to find the princess. Kyle says this could lead the Kuran battalion to a confrontation with the 2nd battalion. So Milena says with the 5th battalion, the forces will be balanced. Theron says they can hide in Sane's village, but Kyle says that could risk the citizens' lives. Therefore, they need to go back to Arkan and will cross through the enemy platoon head-on. Sildonia, in falcon form, doesn't spot the Zentos that Kyle asked her to look for. Since he isn't there, they can make a good plan and the chances of success are high. The princess's carriage gets close to the enemy, setting an ambush. But explosive stones fall from the sky and wreck their formation. Kyle and the group go straight through. Urza uses her spirits for cover, and Theron throws more explosive stones. The captain sends the rest of his men after them. However, one of the carriage wheels breaks, so Kyle says one of them needs to stay behind to deal with the 30 remaining royal guards. Kyle and the others move forward, and Theron stays to send everyone to hell. Said and done, he wipes them all out without any effort. Kyle and Lisa tell Urza that Theron is much more skilled than him. When it's time to fight for real, the guy is ruthless. The royal guard keeps losing men until only 8 are left. Theron says he only needs to delay them and says there's no way they can catch up to his group anymore. The guards give up and leave. Theron drinks a potion and throws some explosive stones to finish them off for good. Playing dirty, the guy cheats and doesn't care. He never intended to let any of them live. Meanwhile, Zentos realized someone is interfering with the plan, so he himself heads to the battlefield, and Sildonia spots him from the skies. She says a single knight is heading towards Kyle, and then Sildonia is attacked by an energy beam from Zen. The guy has eagle vision. Kyle tells Princess Milena to hide. She knows Zentos is coming, and Kyle says he'd prefer to avoid a fight with him, so he asks for the princess's permission to handle this. Milena is curious about Kyle's manner, as he seems to know the situation very well. So she wishes the hero luck, and Kyle swears he will win. Zentos meets Kyle. He doesn't want to lose any more men and says he'll solve everything himself, sending everyone to hell. Kyle says he'd better surrender because he doesn't want to kill him. He asks why he wants to end Princess Milena, but Zentos says he doesn't need to know that, then draws his sword for the duel. Kyle does the same, and the fight begins with a quick advance from both. Kyle dodges Zentos' strike, who is impressed. Kyle remembers Zentos' fighting style very well, because he was the one who taught him how to be a magical swordsman in the future.
The fight between Kyle and Zentos keeps going. And this dude is really strong. The clash of swords is intense. His physical skills are better than Kyle's, and he even uses magic to throw him off balance. But Kyle kicks his sword to jump back. Zentos says it wasn't very chivalrous, but whatever, right? Kyle throws some explosive rocks, but Zentos deflects them and the spell blows up in the hero's face. Kyle rolls on the ground and gets up to keep fighting. Zentos' sword blade gets a small crack, making him step back. Kyle asks Zentos again to surrender so he doesn't have to die. Zentos says if he wants that so much, he should just let him finish him off, but Kyle can't accept that. Zentos needs to end this now before it's too late, so he charges up his magic to go all out. But first he asks Kyle his name, then they both charge at the same time, but Zentos attacks faster and breaks his sword. He tries to stab Kyle, who remembers a sad past, or rather a future, with Zentos talking about how he used to protect the royal family, wielding his sword with great pride, but the nation he swore his life to is gone, so he started living for himself. In the present, Kyle lands a fatal blow on Zentos. Kyle went all out against Zentos, and even though he blocked the strike, Kyle knew he'd come in with a broken sword to kill him. Zentos says Kyle is a strange man and asks for his forgiveness. Kyle cries, feeling terrible for taking out a brother-in-arms, someone he swore to fight alongside. The prince is getting nervous about Zentos taking so long, but then the female royal guard, Kieran, shows up with Princess Milena, who greets her brother and tells her guards to arrest Karina's and interrogate him, even if they have to use force. The kid is dragged away, already getting beaten. Milena thanks Kyle and his group, who are looking pretty beat up. She says she'll thank them properly at the royal castle, and there the group will get to eat the best sweets ever. The sword guy goes wild on the food, and Taryn is already hitting on a maid. Kyle apologizes for the group's crazy behavior. Just then, the king, Milena's father, arrives and says he's grateful, both as a father and as a king, for them saving his daughter. He's sorry about Karina's, but doesn't understand what Zentos was after. Milena says it might be influence from another nation or a scheme by the demons. The king says this matter must not leave this hall under any circumstances, and Kyle promises he would never betray the king and the royal family. The king says he will reward them fittingly for their help. The citizens heard about the incident, which said that Karina's and Milena were attacked by monsters and that most of the royal squad, along with General Zentos, bit the dust. The prince was injured and sent to Corton to recover. In the throne room, Kyle's group arrives in the middle of a crowd to be decorated for rescuing Princess Milena. They get a super important medal. At night, the king is pissed that his son and Zentos failed the mission to take out Milena. Look at this dirty, rotten scumbag. The old man is a bastard 1,000 times over. He doesn't want to renounce the throne for anything when it's time for Milena to take over. Since she's so extraordinary, she'd definitely make a better nation, meaning the king would only be remembered as Milena's father, and his ego won't let him end up like that. The old man is almost losing his hair over it. Then Kyle in disguise appears in his room and says that during the invasion he asked King Ramonas for help to aid the dwarves in the war, but Ramonas would only help them when they were in real danger. This caused humanity to lose a lot of strength for the coming war. After saying that, Kyle says he knows it was Ramona's who set everything up for Milena to die. He's even more pissed that he sent Zentos on a mission that would get him killed. He says the princess is 1,000 times better and throws him off the balcony. Ramona's bit the dust, and the soldiers scream for help. The story given to the people is that the king died of a heart attack. Kyle finds out that Milena is engaged to a prince from the Gargan Empire. Zergos and Gargan have fought over the territory of Karen in the past. In the end, that place stayed with Zergos in exchange for Milena's hand to Prince Mason. However, Milena is thinking of formally refusing the marriage with the prince. And even so, Karen will remain a vassal city-state to Zergos. The important thing is that no official documents have been exchanged regarding this proposal, which is why Milena wants Kyle to inform the Karen government that the marriage will be called off, and then get their approval. The city-state of Karen is seen from afar. Sildonia says the mountain in the city is almost created in the Charles era, as an outpost against demon invasions, all because of the vein beneath the city. So they push the surface up and form the mountain where Karen is. Then Kyle and the others spot dragon knights from the Gargan Empire and head for the city. Kyle introduces himself and wants an audience with the ambassador. The soldier tells him to wait, and Urza hides from the city's dwarves, since the two races don't get along. A familiar face shows up. Kyle recognizes her from the future and happily runs up and grabs her hand. Lise gets super jealous. Her name is Miranda, and she serves as an ambassador in Karen. The group enters and talks with her. Miranda confirms the letter of recommendation is really from Queen Milena. Miranda never expected messengers to arrive. She reveals she was one of Milena's tutors during her training. Miranda says there's no way for them to see Governor Bakes, as he's sick and bedridden. Even she, the ambassador, can't visit him no matter how hard she tries. But Miranda will try again since Kyle and the others are the Queen's messengers. Theron doesn't care about that and goes for a walk. Miranda arrives at the Gargan embassy with the others and tells Kyle to be careful. Just then, the Gargan ambassador appears and is surprised to see Miranda here. Then appears Alsadi Vane, the second highest sorcerer of the Gargan Imperial Court. He's going to pay a visit to the Emperor of Karen, but Miranda says that as the local ambassador, she should visit the governor first. But Alsadi says since the city is autonomous, he didn't think he'd need permission for a visit to the governor. The two don't get along well, and Lise senses the hatred in the air. Kyle introduces himself as an emissary of Queen Milena, and his surname Leonard makes Alsadi remember Soraya, who looks like Kyle. She's Kyle's mother, after all. The sorcerer says they were study colleagues in the past, and he's happy to meet the son of an old friend. However, the butler doesn't let Miranda and the others enter due to the governor's health. She's getting pissed, and if this continues, they'll have to appoint a new governor. Alsadi realizes he'll have to return another time. Miranda argues with the blacksmith Gazos and tells him to accept Zergo's help to solve their problems. The conversation is tough and doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Theron arrives with Gazos' son. Kyle says this dwarf blacksmith could make a sword for Theron if all goes well. Kyle looks at Sumago's blueprints, who's trying to restore an ancient magic weapon. Kyle is shocked to see the robot in the blueprint is the same one from the future in the final battle with the Demon King. Go was the one piloting it all along. The creator of the Iron Golem, an autonomous magic weapon. Most of its components vanished after the fall of Charles, but near the war's end, it appeared again. Sildonia evaluates the blueprint and says it's very well structured. Kyle wants to know the success rate for building the golem, and Sildonia says it's quite high. With that, Kyle wants Go to finish the work as fast as possible, so they can build several and have an advantage in the coming battle. Go says it will still take about 10 years, but Kyle wants it done in 1 year and will provide all the necessary funds for the work. Miranda got nothing from her talk with Gazos and leaves. Then Kyle goes to make a request to the dwarf blacksmith. The old man doesn't want to listen, but Go says it's good to listen to the rich sponsor. Urza gets nervous with Gazos, but he says he's not prejudiced against elves. Theron wants a new sword comparable to Kyle's. Gazos looks at it up close. He's never seen a blade of this level and says he currently can't create a sword better than this one, so he asks them to leave. Kyle is intrigued, as it seems Gazos has seen a sword comparable to Sildonia's before. Another day, Alsadi visits Kyle and wants to talk with him later, inviting Miranda and his friends too, to ride wyverns and fly through the skies. The one who established the methods for taming them was Soraya, Kyle's mother. She was always very talented, which made Al-Sadi admire her greatly. Then he says goodbye to Kyle and says he'll see him at lunch. Sildonia says this sorcerer is very powerful, maybe even able to cast special spells one day. Kyle and Miranda go to lunch with Al-Sadi, but on the way, he senses an evil aura. Upon entering the hall, he finds a horrible scene with blood everywhere and Al-Sadi deceased, and Kyle sees a demon right in front of him. Urza uses her magic to summon a golem and clear the rubble to find the secret passage, finally succeeding after drinking a bunch of potions to recover her mana. Kyle and the group move forward, and he tells everyone to stay alert for any demons showing up. Kyle says they're really dangerous and strong. You can't be too careful. Kyle says Urza isn't looking too good, and Lee shouldn't have come along. But they refuse that and say they'll stick together until the end. Then the group sees a light at the end of the tunnel and run towards it. Kyle and the others find a magic circle and a corpse lying down, which reminds him of the bodies from the future war used to create the magic time travel stone. Sildonia says this is a forbidden rite, and a pretty basic one at that. A rite that uses sacrifices to accumulate magic. All the bodies here were used for that purpose. Lee says someone needed this for a powerful spell, and that's why they used the kidnapped people of Karen. Sildonia says with this shoddy catalyst, it's going to go out of control the moment it exceeds the magic capacity. Maybe even blow up the whole city. Kyle wants to ask what kind of spell they're trying to cast, but before anything else, the bad guys arrive on the scene. The man says he finished the ritual and wants to know what the woman has to say to him. After all, they work with a human collaborator to gather information peacefully. But none of that was peaceful since the Devil Man eliminated all the humans at the embassy, and it wasn't necessary. The guy says that was the wish of their human collaborator. Yelriga says they had orders not to draw attention. Kyle just listens and seems to recognize the demon Ganias. In their conversation, Ganias asks if she forgot they need the item the Demon King desires. Yelriga is irritated about working with a human, but Ganis does everything for his master and pulverizes the body that was lying there, and the two leave the cavern. Sildonia says the best way to reduce casualties is to negotiate with the current Demon King, who seems pretty moderate. Kyle says they need to find the governor in Gazos, since they have good info now. They reach another part of the underground and spot Gazos tied up, and the one talking to them is the old man, Governor Box. The old dude was supposed to be sick, according to Theron. Box says they are the messengers from the kingdom of Zergos who want to control Karen, but he won't allow it. The guy is nuts. Then Kyle finds out it was the governor who sacrificed his own people to save Karen. This explanation is messed up, so Gazos says that Karen's veins are running out. Box tells the dwarf to shut his mouth. The ore veins are what give Karen its livelihood. Jobs will be lost and the country will be weakened, allowing them to be invaded again. Afraid of losing Karen's glory, the governor was willing to sacrifice his people, but the main reason is his terminal illness. That's why the demons used him. Then Ganias arrives, saying that talking like that is very rude. All he proposed was a peaceful agreement, but if they want, he can resort to violence. Ganias will fight Kyle, while Yelriga goes up against Lise and Urza. At that moment, Theron goes off to do something else he says is important, but Kyle doesn't know what it is. But he says he'll take care of the devil alone. However, the creature's strength is enormous. Yelriga tells the girls to run since she has no desire to eliminate them, but Lise charges in and accomplishes nothing, getting thrown far away. Yelriga is on another level. Urza even tries to use her salamander, but also gets beaten up. Sildonia asks if Theron isn't going to help. He says the Demonist doesn't tend to kill them, so it's good practice for a first fight. Theron shows Sildonia a red cube he stole from the governor. She says it could be hiding a magic item or a bound item. Theron observed the governor carefully, and when he heard about the magic sword, he looked in a certain direction. Having said that, Theron throws the cube and sees an aura in one corner of the cavern. Meanwhile, Kyle is fighting Ganias, who has a lot of magical power and is about to launch a series of attacks, not leaving anything for the poor guy. Theron uses his sword and breaks the hidden concrete pillar. His sword bites the dust. However, he found the most awesome magic sword in the galaxy. Theron is super happy and shows the sacred sword to everyone. Urza and Lise keep up their attack against the she-demon and for the first time manage to scratch Yeldra. Ganias isn't having much luck and is groaning in pain. His horn was wrecked by Kyle. He knows the horn represents a demon's pride. A demon without a horn is a real wimp. Yeldra tells Theron to hand over the sacred sword, but of course that's not happening. So Kyle proposes a temporary truce. In 3 days, they'll have a duel in this same spot. If the humans lose, they give back the sword and Ganias' horn. If the demons lose, they have to share more info about their race and if any more of them have infiltrated human society. With that said, Gannis and Yeldra leave the cavern and say they'll keep their word. The group returns with Gazos and Miranda hugs him, crying super relieved and happy that her love is back. Go also cries seeing his father safe and sound. Lise is bright red with embarrassment watching Miranda and Gazos' loving reunion. Later, Kyle gives Mithril to the blacksmith, who is having trouble finding this material. Kyle's goal is for someone to forge a sword that surpasses the sacred sword. Gazos can use as much Mithril as needed for the task. Kyle goes back to the cavern with Sildonia and they see the stone is about to lose control. They can transfer the magical power from the catalyst to the divine dragon's heart, but it will take days to complete the transfer. Sildonia starts the process, while Lise and Urza are training for the showdown in 3 days, and everyone is focused on what they can do right now. The day of the duel arrives, and Kyle and the group get their way too early. They should have set a time for the fight. Because of this, Lise sets up a tea time until the demons arrive, with biscuits and everything. Lise and Urza came up with a plan to beat Yeldra. Just then, the 2 demons arrive at the cavern and are incredulous at the humans' lack of concern. Kyle apologizes for the wait and says it's time to settle this. He says he and Gannis will fight in another spot, while Lise and Urza face Yeldra in the cavern. Theron says not to worry, and Sildonia will stay here to report anything to Kyle. Theron won't fight. If Yeldra beats Urza and Lise, he'll hand over the sacred sword. Yeldra didn't want to do this and says the girls are quite strong, but now she'll go all out against them. She starts to glow and increase her power, causing strong winds. If Urza and Lise don't want to bite the dust, they'd better surrender. Theron says if they can avoid taking the first hit, the fight will get interesting. Yeldra charges at Urza but is held back by the stone golem. Lise tries to attack but is caught off guard by a kick that grazes her, almost knocking her out. The fight continues and the girls are struggling a lot. Sildonia says Theron needs to help, but he says if he does, he'll be the one getting wrecked later for interfering. Lise uses the gnome to smash Yeldra in the face and then lands a solid punch to her stomach. Yeldra, enraged, charges forward but gets hit by a punch from Lise and is left gasping for air. Now things are getting good. Kyle and Garnias arrive at their chosen fight spot, which is about to begin. Yeldra keeps fighting, but now she's getting a beating from Lise, and Urza uses her salamander to finish the fight. Even though she's a demon, she wouldn't get out unscathed. Theron and Sildonia think it was way too easy, so Yeldra reveals she still has strength to continue. Yeldra tells Lise that she dodged her attack, but how did she do it since Yeldra is much faster? Lise says it's always the same thing with Yeldra. She's really easy to read. It's like it's her first real fight. And they're right. Yeldra feels embarrassed, and the girls can only say that because they're winning. With that, Yeldra surrenders and admits that Lise and Urza showed promise, but she would never be afraid to die in a fight. However, her demon king demanded she return alive above all else. So Yeldra will leave the sacred sword aside and wants to know what happens to those who surrender. Lise thinks they should just let her go. Theron says it can't be that easy. Urza asks if there are more infiltrators in the human kingdom. Yeldra says the demon king only sent her and her partner, but other demons might have entered the human kingdom on their own. Yeldra wants to know if they want anything else, and says if they were men, she wouldn't mind going to bed with them. This she-devil is so naughty, my goodness. Have some decency, girl. Yeldra accepts the suggestion to leave and starts walking away, but first asks for their names and gives hers, hoping they won't forget. Lisa's demons are quite polite, which is unexpected. Theron, on the other hand, charges in to test the sharpness of the sacred sword. The scene cuts to Kyle and Garnias who begin their duel. Kyle goes in with his strength and speed magic, but Garnias blocks it and launches his own spell. In the middle of the fight, Garnias finds himself cornered by Kyle's attacks. But soon the boy hits a rock and is left with no options. Garnia says there's a level difference between humans and demons that can't be changed. Kyle knows this well, so he'll use every trick he has and throws a vial with a mysterious liquid. It's a super glue created by a magic engineer. So, with him distracted, Kyle launches a chain made by a dwarf to tie him up, a chain made of mithril that can withstand magma heat. Now Kyle wants info from the guy. He wants to know if the current Demon King really doesn't want conflict. Garnia says Ruiza, the current Lady of the Demons, desires no conflict. She has had contact with humans before, which made her want the sacred sword. However, there are demons who sympathize with the war against humans, but Demon King Ruiza wants none of that. Kyle wants to know why the sympathizers don't act to change their ruler. Garnia says Lady Ruiza's power is immense. There's no way to take her throne. Kyle asks the most important question. Does Garnias know of a demon with black wings and no horns who wants a throne? Garnias doesn't know anyone like that and says a demon without horns could never reach the throne. So for Kyle, this guy is useless. To save himself, Garnias says Kyle could have a meeting with Demon King Ruiza. It's not a bad deal. Kyle says maybe, but he doesn't want any traps. With that, Garnias sends his invisible monster after Kyle, who defeats it without even turning around. Kyle now says if he hadn't messed up, Garnias might have survived. Kyle remembers him from the future and all his tricks, so he kicks him into the lava, where he'll burn to dust. The mithril chains are resistant and can last up to 12 hours in the magma. If he can last that long, he might get out alive. It was thanks to him that Kyle and his allies carried out the final attack in the war against the demons. Garnias perishes, cursing Kyle and saying he will pay for everything. Theron, instead of cutting Yeldra down, defeated an invisible monster of Garnias that was targeting her. She says it was supposed to be a trap in case she left that way. Lise and Urza say Theron can't attack a surrendered enemy. He explains he actually saved her, but really his initial thought was to eliminate Yeldra, but he changed targets when he saw the monster. Yeldra says she is in debt to Theron, so he suggests they go to bed together, like he said before. Lise elbows Theron to stop the nonsense, and Yeldra leaves. Theron knows Kyle will be angry because he wasn't supposed to let the she-demon leave alive. Theron's been training with the sacred sword, and Kyle sees he's pretty comfortable with it and asks what he thought about the demons. Theron says they're strong but not that scary. They're not so different from humans. Kyle says their way of thinking is quite similar. Now he understands that might be the reason Theron let Yeldra leave alive. If she were that dangerous, Theron would never have let her go so easily. This might mean that even among demons, the 300-year truce made some of them more peaceful. Lise and Urza arrive and are perfectly fine after the fight. Kyle congratulates them on a great job. Kyle goes to talk to Gazos, who says he's okay, despite Kyle's insane request. As a farewell gift, the dwarf blacksmith gives Kyle and Theron sheaths for their swords made from mithril. Kyle thanks him for the gift, and Gazos says he won't waste the mithril he was given. Go talks with Sildonia, asking her to live with him to teach him more about the golem and other technologies. But Sildonia says she can't and that she's already taught him everything he needs. Go is sad about this, and Sildonia says she can't abandon Kyle since she is his sword. Go gives up on having Sildonia with him. Kyle is counting on Go's help with the golem. Go is sad that Kyle gets all the girls. In Karen, they're starting to call him a nickname, the sexy hero. Kyle and his group leave, and he says they need to do everything they can to get the human kingdoms to ally against a potential demon attack, to change their fate. Theron says this kid is as overly optimistic as always. At sunset, the Queen of Zergos, Milena, receives a message that the three princes in the imperial capital held an emergency meeting about the sorcerer killed at the Empire's embassy in Karen. Milena sends Augs and Curran on a mission. Cut to Kyle's mother, who is pregnant again. Then Lee spots a Zergos carriage and points out Curran and Augs. The group heads to the carriage and catches a ride. Theron leaves, and Urza play cards to pass the time. After that, Kyle talks with Curran and the old man Augs, saying everything that happened in Karen was the demon's doing, and he can testify at the conference with the Empire. The old man says they don't need to worry. In the worst case, either the Empire or Zergos will go to war, and one of the two nations will be left in ruins. Curran tells him not to joke about the kingdom's fate. The group is arriving at the capital Ruaz in the Gargan Empire. and Kyle thinks he might meet one of the princes of Gargan, like in the future. Speaking of them, the three princes are having a meeting and don't believe demons were responsible for the Gargan sorcerer's death, thinking it was a setup by Zergos, even though it was reported a hero from Zergos eliminated one of the demons. Mazer is relaxed, lying down, and gets scolded by his brother. He says everything's fine based on his intuition. Later that night, Kyle and all his friends make an appearance at the royal party. Sildonia is eating like there's no tomorrow, and Theron bumps into and holds the arms of a beautiful lady. Kyle goes outside and talks with a beautiful, mysterious woman who says something to him. Mazer arrives and wants to speak directly with Kyle, proposing that he serve him. But Kyle doesn't want to, and Mazer says if his answer is no, he'd better just finish him off. If he's not an ally, he shouldn't even exist. Yeldra in the Demon Kingdom talks with her lady and says she's very sorry for failing to bring back the sacred sword, and for Garnia's losing his life. She says she will accept any order to atone for her mistakes from her lady and Demon King Ruiza. My dude, I'm back after being away for ages. Now I want to focus on putting out videos 4 times a week and growing the community. Help me out by leaving your like and a comment, so the channel's reach can get back on track. This new Saga anime was kinda fun, but at the start I swore it was gonna be better. What did you think? Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next hype anime coming here. Thanks for the constant support, and peace out.